Ladies and gentlemen of Tring, in Tring, and around Tring. Stop it. Please, give a rapturous welcome to the first act of the day, the wonderful Mr. Troy Hawk!
That's almost too much. Come on, stop. Sit. That's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. It's deserved. Wonderful. How are we doing? We're very well. Fantastic. Do you know what? I'm looking out at you. You're very lovely, but you know that. You do. You're being modest. I mean, you're almost exactly like foie gras. Mostly beige, wonderfully pliant, and morally reprehensible. I found my people at last. Where have you been? Hello, sir. You know, you're almost exactly like a library, almost exactly like a library of books. You know, I mean, some of you haven't been taken out for a while. Others are extremely well thumbed. That one hasn't been returned. Probably somewhere right now, probably on a piece of furniture as we speak. And you're all set strictly according to genre, which is wonderful. You know, history, education, crime. Stop it. No, look, listen, Tring. I understand this is rather a lot to take in, so I'll just give you a moment, all right? And I appreciate that many of you are here to see others, possibly others characterised in caricatures, are literally directly behind me. And many of you may be engaging in the next 50 minutes through a bead curtain of question marks. Yeah, it was lovely, wasn't it? Let me show you, I intend to turn those bead question marks into smiles with one winking eye very, very shortly. We're going to have a very wonderful time. I do understand, I have to explain this. I happen to carry a feather. Do we have any others here with plumage at all? Come on. Are we all montparnashed? Is that... Yeah, now listen, one thing I have to explain to you. Life is very difficult for us feather carriers. You know, particularly at the discotheque. I mean, certain dance moves are completely off the menu. The hand jive, you know, the hot potato, the macarena. All of them completely inaccessible. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. I've been trying to give up. Yeah, I've been using one of those electronic feathers. You know, they're just not the same. The battery goes mid-gesture, you look a terrible fool. The government's trying to ban them. There are no harmful effects, but apparently they encourage feather-carrying behaviour in others. Very, very bit of satire, first thing in the morning. It is very early, isn't it? It's just last night I was facing the hounds of Portsmouth. So this is a welcome respite, an amorphous blob, you know, is women, is harridans with the shapes of peni, sir. The shapes of peni! Imagine it, I've never seen them pluralised before. Shocking. Now I want to give it up, I do, it's a terrible habit. I'm trying to go, oh, where are you going?
Sorry, I'll be back in a minute, sorry.
Oh, well, I'll just wait for you then. A minute! How many does this lady think I have? She doesn't have a very wonderful headscarf. No, I'm trying to give up. I wanted to go cold turkey. It's very difficult, even though turkey is one of my favourite words. I love it. Turkey. Turnkey, that's another one. Turnkey, tourniquet, tyranny, anything like that. Now, listen, what bloody hell's going on? I should explain, I should tell you a little bit about myself. You deserve that. At least the woman's going to come back confused, but there's a very strong chance that would have been the case anyway. It's too much. Let's stop it. That's too much. Poor lady. We shan't be laughing at her misfortune, shall we? No, we're here to laugh at mine. Now, no, I understand. Within this construct, it's entirely permissible. It's encouraged. Have at it. I should tell you a little bit about myself. Now listen. Now listen, Tree. I knew that I was different from all the other children the first moment I left the house, because I was 25. I was homeschooled, home college, home university, home gap year. Homework experience, I've just told you I didn't leave the house. It doesn't take a massive leap of presumption. My mother had me in the late 70s. Her late 70s. I mean, she's 107 now, she's in a jar, but what is life, really? What is life, sir, when we stop and think about it? What's it, no? My father, my father died several years before I was born. Do you know, sometimes I had to let that drop till the last permissible second, but you were on it like a pack of strafing hyenas, sensing weakness or blood in a small woodland creature, and I applaud you for it. Yeah, my father was very good friends with a chap called David Niven. Now, do we all know who that is? Yes, of course! So silly, you're in train, you idiot. I do not know who David Niven is. Come on. Now, David Niven, for those that don't know, which is nobody, you've missed absolutely nothing. I mean, we're on to David Niven.
Oh, did I miss anything good?
No. No, I mean, you've missed literally nothing. A little bit about my parents, that really is inconsequential flim-flam. I didn't have more consequential information, structure for that part, but I decided to rearrange the entire structure of the show so we could accommodate your notes and visit. Yes. I was entranced by your headscarf. I was wondering if I could swap with my cravat. They're interchangeable, I'm sure. Yes, I'll talk to you later, perhaps.
Can I borrow your feather?
Pardon?
Can I borrow your feather?
Can you borrow my feather? No, I'm sorry, darling. There are boundaries. I mean, you were here when I was talking about the feather, for the love of mercy.
It's just I'm a bit partial to a bit of tickling.
Now, you see, it's a very good point this woman has raised. Because Ken Dodd's lawyers have been in touch with me. Far ahead of the game, sir. Far ahead of the game. Very far ahead of the game. Ken Dodd's lawyers have been in touch. I'm entirely allowed to brandish this on stage as long as I don't refer to any kind of tickling behaviour at any point. Because that crosses into his territory, and as we're going to find out, there are some issues with tickling, some very serious issues which are going to crop up later on in the show. Now, where was I? David Niven, yes, of course I was. Now, David Niven was a raconteur, as we all know. Very, very fond of the pause. In fact, he played fast and loose with the pause. Some would say too much. Well, certain people pause to allow them to digest their words. So David Niven would pause to allow you to digest the words and for those words to be passed entirely through your system, presumably then to be cleaned up off of the street by a metaphorical municipal worker of some kind. Thank you for going with that. Bizarre, isn't it? Yes, my father actually passed away during one of David Niven's longer anecdotes. It was the one about the crab at the underwater disco. Now, bear in mind, my father had been through 2 world wars, but had never faced an adversary as charming as David Niven. He just couldn't find a place to cut in. Just couldn't find a place to cut in. Not a problem you have, but he just couldn't. Tried. Eventually, the story went on and on and on, and broke his neck from all the encouraging nods. As it turned out, the crab went to the underwater disco, got pissed, and walked straight. That's essentially it, sir. That's essentially, no, I heard a mercifully abridged version of Parkinson's interview. Nobody needs to die. Nobody. Very tragic, very tragic. Now listen, my mother was an actress, and of course I was born one. She used to keep herself tight in the game by playing different tutors for all the different subjects I had at home school. But you know, you remember your school days, don't you, madam? All those different teachers. There's always a sexy one, isn't there? Yes, of course there is. You know, she was also a very committed nudist. Now, I know there are debates, aren't there, about elderly naked teaching. And, of course, there are arguments for, there are arguments against. I mean, I don't happen to think it's black and white. There are grey areas. It all gets a little bit squirrely. You're picturing it, sir. I would advise against that very strongly. Just come back. Stop it. Come back. Fine. Now, listen, I have to do this. I literally can't stop myself dancing. I tell you about my teachers. Remember Mr. Clist? He was a no-nonsense games master from Cleethorpes. Now, Mother never actually spoke when she was Mr. Clist, but I knew he was from Cleethorpes because she would pass me these notes written in phonetic Northern. Thou must do 10 press-ups or I'll kill Christian. That kind of thing, which is ridiculous because, you know, I didn't have the necessary upper body strength to do 10 7. Come on. There was my inspirational, we all have an inspirational teacher, don't we? Of course we do, yes. Mine was Mr. Clifton Sweets, a wheelchair-bound chap, very unfortunate, had his legs crushed by a petrol station early in life, ending a promising career as an estate agent. I'll be honest, I can't remember the rest of the backstory. I was taught chemistry by Eliza Doolittle, which was incredibly tedious. Can you imagine, sir? All together now, oxygen, nonyllium, lithium, shut up, mother! Shut up! I mean, at one point it becomes impossible to suspend your disbelief. How on earth did a chirpy cockney flower girl attain a master's degree in chemistry, for God's sake? And one thing I never had was that issue of calling my teacher's mother, because she was a wonderful actress, you know. But parent-teacher evenings descended into a nightmare of recrimination and violence. She tried to tip her frail naked body out of that wheelchair. I mean, I should have stepped in to do something and stop it, but I really didn't want to. I was, you know, fully equipped, obviously, to come out into the world, make my societal debut, which I did one morning, armed solely with the work of Roger Hargreaves. Come on, now listen, sir. I know you know who he is. Congratulations. Big gold star to you. If there are people in here that know who Roger Hargreaves is, I will beg you right now, please don't. Do not inform your neighbour. Allow them the wonder and the surprise of what's to come. No spoilers. No spoilers. Spoiler alert. Listen, if your neighbour is desperate, who is Roger Hargreaves? Who is he? I need to know. Please, indulge me on this. Give them a false spoiler. Let me lie to your neighbour. And I'll tell you for why. I think false spoilers are the only permissible form of human altruism that we have left as a species. Let me explain. You're reading a book, enjoying it enormously. Charles approaches you. Oh, you do know it's Gideon that burns down the barn. You put the book down in disgust. Well, you've quite ruined this for me, Charles. I hope you're happy with yourself. I'm going to have to carry on reading because I'm too invested in the plot. Now, I can't give up, but I'm sharply the same. Then you read on. You read page 108. And you realise it's actually Nigel. Double the surprise! Double the fun! Charles receives no social strength whatsoever. He's made the sacrifice of you hating him. So you can have the enjoyment. So for those out here right now wondering, I expected some kind of fanfare, but ticker tape, come on, it's funny. Really? If you are wondering who Roger Hargreaves was, he's a gardener chap on a reality TV show whose fame eclipsed in a racism row. Alright, so, armed with the complete works of Roger Hargreaves, I stepped on into the grey light of Croydon you know, to make my society. Yes, you're quite right, Croydon, funny in and of itself. I was very excited, you know, I mean, I had the distinct feeling it meant more to me than anyone else, which was something of a shock. But why I didn't expect us to be shouted at, I did not expect to get shouted at, you know. These chaps in hoods at the bus stops, you know, they'd see me and they'd swarm, like the Navy attacking a Somalian peddler. I was marooned, you know, and helpless, and they'd come at me and they're shouting things at me. You viperous cat! You moribund worm! You vainglorious pantywaist! I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. It's very difficult to hear. I'm usually wearing a deerstalker at the time. But you know, I spent way too much time dealing with this. I don't know if you've ever done it, but it's very hard trying to maintain a sense of enigma when one is sprinting full whip down the Tooting Beck. I heard once said, I've toned down to fit in with Tree. I've toned down to fit in with my surroundings, or chameleon-like manner. But when I started out, or with my societal debut, you have to understand, I was the full flip. I mean, you know, and I was walking around, and you'll never guess what happened. One day, I saw this chap, and he was dressed exactly like me. He looked wonderful. He was gliding down the street, you know, pomaded, oiled, superb, and then lotions, expensive lotions. You know, the lotions with the funny sounding ingredients that pay way over the odds for. And I approached this chap, and I was delighted. I was giddy. We can go that far. We can. I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, sir, I think you look absolutely wonderful. And do you know what? I'll never forget what he said to me. He turned back to me, and he said, "Shut up, you mug! I'm going to a fancy dress party." Now, listen, I'm many things, Tring. I'm many things. Punctual being one of... Don't worry, I don't go for bad night. I'm many things, but I am not a mug. I am not a mug. So I did the only thing left, and I challenged him to a duel. Of course I did. With our feathers, obviously, you know. And, as per the cliche, he actually managed to knock me down with his. I got up smiling. When does that happen? You just knocked me down with the feather. And I thought, well, now that we've been this primal to each other, literally, or nothing remains. I'm sure we'll first become firm friends. I was delighted about the friendship we were about to have. But then, unfortunately, the other two musketeers came around the corner and kicked my head in. And it was a mess. It was a mess. It wasn't very dignified, you know. It was a complete one for all. Just want to let that drop and simmer. Just want to let that drop and simmer. Drop and simmer. But you know what, right? I was very, very grateful to those chaps, because if it wasn't for them, I would face no social adversity whatsoever. You can imagine, can't you, sir? Dreadful fate. As a white middle-class man, I traditionally am the victim of no social oppression. And the more I thought about that, the more I found that rather oppressive. I mean, we've all read stories, haven't we? We've all read stories. You know, the hero has to go through some kind of adversity. He's shaped by that adversity, and then he comes out the other side. I felt like a white, hot lump of coal just waiting to be crushed into a diamond. And I mean, look at art. The greatest art and culture history has ever produced has come from times of extreme hardship. Which is correct, Tring, am I right? Yes, of course. Yes, of course I am. I mean, for instance, look at the musical band Oasis. If those chaps hadn't had to have grown up in Manchester, do you really think we'd have the wonder from them that we have today? Morrissey. If Morrissey had had any friends at any point of his life, I very much doubt any of us would be talking about him. And if Sir Phil Collins wasn't the victim of a viciously aggressive receding hairline, would we have had the gem of Studio? Would we? I very much doubt it. I very much doubt it. And it was difficult for me because society wasn't going to oppress me on its own, you know, and I needed an angle. This isn't enough. It's not. No, it isn't. It's just, you know, especially in train. There's no ethnicity about me whatsoever. Blacking up hasn't been popular for a while. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be disabled again. And nobody in their right mind would believe that I was a homosexual. Come on, stop it. Stop it. The wrong dog barking on the wrong tree, and entirely the wrong forest. Come on. What? Really silly, isn't it? So what does one do with nerve pressure? What does one do with nerve pressure? How does one? Well, one has to better make it. So I took the only road that I believed to be open to me at that point. And I decided to try and become a terrorist. Do we have any here? No. Now listen, this is entirely the point. I mean, I didn't have any friends at that point, but I imagine if I did have any, I wouldn't have a terrorist one. You know, they're very rare. And you know what they say, terrorist today keeps the conversational lulls at bay. But it does, come on, it does. That would be something of an eye-opener, wouldn't it, you know? One in the hand is worth two. Hiding out in an abandoned building, living on jetpacks. But the problem is becoming a terrorist. It's no picnic, you know, and they don't like picnics. They don't. It's one thing I'd have to give up, you know, but I love, you know, the chance to wear my wicker hat and eat pâté, but being a terrorist is all about making sacrifices, so, you know, it's not as easy as the papers would have you believe. You know, I've read some papers and I thought I'd literally be opening my front door and stepping onto fundamental extremists, but no, there weren't even any in the park. There were some very vocal chaps, but unless they were mounting some kind of holy war on pigeons, then they weren't quite the people I wanted to talk to. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult, you know. I mean, and I'm also finding the right one. Yeah, I did shop around for the appropriate terror cause. I couldn't quite land on one that I loved. I mean, you know, the aspect of some I liked, aspects of others. For instance, I really like the idea of declaring a jihad on somebody. But I love pork. Declare a jihad on you! Oh, bacon sandwich, you're off the hook. You're off the hook. I'm very fond of the idea of phoning somebody up and telling them they have 3 minutes to get out the building. But I just can't do the accent. I just got tried. I mean, this is me after months of practice. You should have heard me in the beginning. I sounded like an aggrieved sea lion. Now, listen, in my defense, that is a very difficult line to practice in public. And the other thing about that is, well, 3 minutes to get out of the building. You know, it takes me that long to tie a cravat. I mean, how on earth are these people supposed to look presentable as they're feeling? You know, 30 minutes to get out of the building, that's more like it. I mean, of course, that gives a greater chance of the bomb being found. You know, but I think they're all swings and roundabouts in the playground of terror. I mean, you know, give and take. Give and take. I mean, if only there was a terrorist equivalent of Build-A-Bear. Where you can take the aspects of one and put them all together. I don't know if you know Build-A-Bear. It's like paraphrasing, but with teddies. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I was shopping around. I couldn't really find the right one. And do you know what? I was ridiculous because it turns out the actual cause that I should have been looking for all along was right there, right in front of me, inside me, around me, of me. Ladies and gentlemen, have we all heard of the Men's Rights Association? Baffled silence. Do you hear that, sir? The idea that we as men should have rights. So confusing to these people. What a wonderful collection of words. Men, rights, association. I mean, there's nothing that can go wrong there. Now, I didn't know. I had no idea whatsoever that us chaps were facing the daily grind of sexism every single day. And I don't know about you, sir. I'm not going to stand for that. I'm going to defend us men in the face of, Sheila's wheels. Now listen, I have no idea what that is, all right? I just know I'm not bloody invited. I imagine it's some kind of bakery good, But why say it in code? Maybe us men want to bite. Ground into dust by the likes of Diet Coke. Diet Coke! Turning me into a fancy Dan for the perusement of others. I'm not going to be objectified by a carbonated drink. It's absolutely disgusting. Those wonderfully symmetrical crisps in the tubes. Oh, you start and you literally cannot stop. You start and you literally cannot stop. That's 2/3 of your daily calorific intake gone in a heartbeat. Then you're a docile creature, aren't you? Have you seen the shape of them exactly like the curve of a woman's hip? Convenience, conspiracy. Women crying to win the argument. Women crying to win the argument, no matter how logical our point of attack has been up to now. We lose, sir, don't we? We lose. We absolutely lose. Now, I had to keep quiet on that one because it was a tactic I employed to stop Mother tying me to the radiator on numerous occasions. The word bullshit! The word bullshit is testicularly male and testosteronically negative. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. We shouldn't stand for it, sir, should we? We absolutely shouldn't stand for it. Now, it's very important to point out at this point, I knew literally nothing about women. Only what Mother had told me. Now, listen, I knew that you're very emotional creatures, and you like to talk a lot. But it's nothing that can't be cured by a hearty embrace or a light, open-palmed strike across the cheek. Now, these men of the Men's Rights Association, clearly incapable of either. Absolutely, I was asking them about women, and apparently they want to turn us into sexual slaves. They want to turn us into sexual slaves, workhorses, hidden away, milked, like the beefy ones, the beefy animals, and I don't know about you, I'm not prepared to be a man cow. And apparently, there's a movement of feminine equivalent called the feminists. Have we heard of the feminists?
Yes.
Yes, we have. Do we have to help? We have to help. Only when it suits you, yes, I can. No, I understand. No, I knew nothing about this terror group, and I was asking the men's rights about the feminists, and they were described to me as being almost exactly like Nazis. That appealed to me very much, because I've always loved films about the war. But I have to be honest, and the idea of evil, deep, dark, delicious, creamy evil, starts to become a little bit appealing to me. I was looking for something to make me stand out from the crowd. And, the Nazis, they really are the Rolls Royce of wrongdoing. So with that in mind, I decided to try and become a feminist. I approached a feminist terror gulag. No, I knew I had to be aggressive and assertive to show them that I was one of them. So I booted the door down. Stormed in there! And I said, listen ladies, if you stop this silly clucking of yours, stop the silly clucking of yours for just 2 minutes. If that's possible. You'll see that I'm perfectly equipped to become a feminist figurehead. People are always staring at my chest. I love dictatorships, and I'm constantly being told to shave my body hair. No, it's true. In Croydon men's baths recently, this Thai chap came up to me, stroked my chest and barked like a dog. Now, I don't know what he was driving at, but his foot was firmly on the accelerator. I said, look, I am perfectly poised to become double agent. Infiltrate places where men show up, like the B&Q. Well, you capture one, bring him back, perform dastardly experiments on him and advance the cause of feminism. And they said, all right, what aspects of society do you find sexist, Mr. Hawke? Now, I presume they meant towards women. And I had an answer to that. Roger Hargreaves. Roger Hargreaves! I take it we all now know who Roger Hargreaves is. Sir, you were the first off the marks. Tell the crowd who Roger Hargreaves is.
The author of Mr. Men.
Someone tried to steal your thunder back there. Saving the cloak of an anonymous darkness. How dare you? The Mr. Men author! That's right! He wrote the Mr. Men. And if there is a more masculine moniker than Mr. Men, then Mother's mustachioed marvel me, Mr. Men. That's not it. That's not it. What are the female counterparts called? Little Miss. Little Miss. Why are they little? Why are they unmarried? Is Roger Hargreaves so oppressed by women that he has to figuratively reduce them in title and social status right off the bat? Did Germaine Greer write Little Miss Female Eunuch? I don't think she did. I don't think she did. I don't believe she did. And this rampant sexism runs through every story he writes. I'm going to give you some examples. Little Miss Naughty. Little Miss Naughty. She isn't running around having early teen, hormonal, mischievous episodes. No! She's careening around. She physically intimidates Mr. Small. She breaks Mr. Clever's glasses. She tramples on Mr. Uppity hat. She's causing havoc and destruction like a small purple Oliver Reed. But is the punishment she receives warranted? No, I don't bloody think it is. The Mr. Men form a brutal kangaroo court. And are there any Little Miss Peers on the jury? No. Is it 12 good Mr. Men and true? No. It's 12 very angry Mr. Men. And you know what they do? Mr. Impossible. This is what they get to. Tweaks Little Miss Naughty's nose to try and cure her of her naughtiness. The moral of that story, it's all right for men to use physical violence to keep women in line. And it is literally impossible to control them. Little Miss Scatterbrain goes to the bank and tries to withdraw sausages instead of money. Women clearly can't handle finance. But perhaps the most upsetting and disturbing, Little Miss Neat. Little Miss Neat goes on a girls' holiday, possibly a hen's night. I don't know who with, maybe Sunshine, maybe Fickle. Leaves her beautiful showroom, While she's away, Mr. Muddle enters her apartment uninvited. Uninvited. And attempts to make himself a cup of tea. Now, I don't know if you have the level of empathy that I do. The horror that unfolds over the next few pages is crushing as the showroom is rendered a post-Dali-esque nightmare by Muddle's complete inability to do anything right. And Little Miss Neat comes back to a complete mess and is Mr. Mr. Muddle punished at any point in the narrative? No! No! The moral of the story is women shouldn't go on single-sex holidays. And men should never make the tea. This is what we're giving our children for the love of mercy. And what of the men? What of the men? Perfect, happy, strong. And the less said about Mr. Tickle. Now this is where things get truly disturbing. I'm going to read for you verbatim. The last half of the very upsetting story of Mr. Tickle. I'm sorry, this does get rather harrowing. We're going on this journey together. Sitting in his armchair in his small house at the other side of the wood, he laughed and laughed when he thought about all the people he had tickled. Just think. Perhaps he's somewhere about at this very moment while you're reading this book. Perhaps that extraordinarily long arm of his is already creeping up to the door of this room. Perhaps it's opening the door now, coming into the room. Perhaps, before you know what is happening, you will be well and truly I've been wondering why it's been so unseasonably hot recently. It appears someone has been stealing all of the thunder. It's too much. In a parallel universe, it could have worked out. That's too much. Too much. Come on, stop. Lovely, lovely. Thank you, sir. And she could be a bit traumatized, you know, trying to take control of the situation, and for that she should be applauded. I said to the feminists, I said, listen, we should round up all of Hargreaves' books at once, put them on a bonfire, and set them alight. And they said, well, what are you talking about? We're not burning any books. We're not Nazi. Well, how about we throw some bras on for kindling? That kind of ended my feminist adventure. I have to be honest with you. Good routine needs a strong punchline. Very aware of that. Very aware of that, thank you. I was quite lost. I'd been rejected by the men, rejected by the women. I didn't quite know what to do, but I was still seduced by evil. Still seduced by villainy, dark, creamy wrongdoing. And I decided to look around, you know, for something else to sort of get my fat little teeth into, in a period of self-loathing, and I wanted to project that onto others so I feel good about myself, and villainy fit that perfectly. Now, I looked around at modern-day villains. You had the beggars, you know. I mean, I knew they were villains anyway. I've seen the film Mary Poppins. You know, there's no chance of getting their hands on my tuppence. But I decided to stay with my misogynistic Buddha, Roger Hargreaves, you know, and he did inspire me. I looked through the books, you know, I looked through the Mr. Men. There's no black ones, you know. There's a white one. He's called Mr. Good. Now his problems are he lives in Badland, you know, nothing's going right for him until he moves to Goodland, and magically everything becomes better again. I mean, it's a thinly veiled attack on an open door immigration policy. And I thought, well, if Hargreaves is going there, why don't I? I decided to become a racist. Of course I did. Of course I did. Now listen, I feel there's some judgments. Now please allow me to put my case across here. Have you thought about becoming a racist ever? Now listen, have you decided to take it out? Picture it, the wonderful utopia of the closed mind. Come on, that has to be appealing in some way. Decision-making processes become incredibly easy. Well, do I like this person? Well, do they look very much like me? No? Well, in that case, no. So relaxing, no. I think the Buddhists had it the wrong way around when they wanted to open everything up and close everything down. So let's pretend you want an open immigration policy. Please, this is an example of racist debating. Please, could you share your views with me? No! I don't understand! I'm sorry, I've never heard of it! It's like quotes from the Bible. You're going to win every single argument you ever have. Now listen, again, not an easy path to take. Like anything difficult, it's hard. There is plenty of literature on racism out there, but absolutely nothing on becoming one from scratch. It's very difficult to meet your fellow racists, you know, I've learned that. You can't just walk down the street and say, hello, I'm a racist. I was wondering if you were too, and if you are, maybe we could get together next Tuesday and, you know, race. Doesn't work out like that. I tried to practice. I tried to practice on my own. I'd go out, and wherever I was, I'd tell myself to go back home, back to where I came from. Sometimes that wasn't very convenient because I'd only just got to the library. And then when I was home, my racist options were confined to mother, which is a little bit limiting, you know, but I'd try. I'd shout things at her, you know, cracker, white bread, and she would just bring me snacks. High carbohydrate snacks at that, you know, I'd have to take a mid-afternoon nap, the entire day would be a write-off, you know. And anyway, that's the kind of thing those foreigners do, so it's completely counterproductive. Completely counterproductive. No, it was difficult. I mean, what you don't understand about racists possibly is they have a very, very complicated code of getting to know each other. You know, I mean, it's incredibly clever. It's a series of arched eyebrows, poignant looks and words that commit to absolutely nothing. It's like watching a Chekhov play, you know? If it was set somewhere discriminatory like Russia, it's absolutely beautiful. Honestly, they really do deserve more credit. They've developed an entire code. I'm going to do some racist impressions for you now. Now, by that, I mean impressions of racists. Of course. They're all going to be my accents, but I wanted to make it known, racists can come from anywhere. It's very important you know that. I would hate you to think I was being geographically discriminatory against them. This is the kind of thing, this is some examples of racist communication. Here we are. Right. There's a lot of people out there on the streets, aren't there? I got on the bus the other day. There was this black chair. Chinese people. Now I realised I needed to go and further this, so what I did was I attempted to join several racist organisations. Now, the cynical among you will probably doubt, you know, the validity or truth of what I'm about to read. If it really is burning in your mind, please come and find me later and I'll show you everything you need to know. It's all on my smart telephone. This is the letter I sent out. Hello. I've recently decided to pursue the ethno-discriminatory arts. You can have that. I've learned some basic moves, frowning, tutting, and so on, and, you know, in Kent, you know, the white belt. And I feel ready to take things further. Please advise by return post strictly how I may advance my distaste for the unfamiliar. Yours, Troy. I got one reply from UKIP Hillary. Hello, Troy. UKIP is a non-racist, non-sectarian organisation, as stated in our terms and conditions. See, that was where I was going wrong. I needed an organisation that didn't say they weren't racist in their terms and conditions. Obvious when you think about it. We do not discriminate against our many members who are of diverse races, religions and backgrounds. Please see our website. The header photo is taken at our conference, and it includes people of just about every major religion and ethnicity. I'll tell you what, it's 2 Indian chaps and a black fella. And you know, if I had near one poster, which I will do, by Edinburgh, I can point them out. I'm not quite sure which he means by every single race and religion. No, he doesn't. That's the point, which I'll make better. In the fullness of time. This is a preview, for God's sake. Looking at me with those expectant eyes. Come on! Some of this is brand new, you know. Some of these lines are like tiny babies, tiny orphan babies. Depending on your reaction to them, they'll be taken out, played with, they'll grow, they'll thrive, you know, they'll carry on until they retire later in life. And they'll have a wonderful time of it. Or. Doesn't bear thinking about, does it? If you are a racist, as your letter suggests, we want nothing to do with you. However, if you are joking, I attach a membership form for your attention. Now this was my real problem, you see. Now it turns out I was having trouble becoming a true racist. I don't do things by heart, you know. I wanted to fully commit and become tied down. The point is I couldn't become a racist because I wanted to become one. The two things, they don't go. To be a really true racist, that's not the case. True racists do not think they are. You know, it's a problem. In fact, they begin their more extreme opinions with a complete denial. Whereas I found myself saying things like, now listen, I am a racist, but something inside me loves the idea of society as a wonderful caramel-coloured utopia. No, I'm not open-minded. No, some of my very best friends are bigots. And then I realised I wasn't a racist. But when I realised I wasn't a racist, I realised that gave me a chance of becoming a racist. But then as soon as I realised that, I couldn't become a racist anymore. Because I was aware of it. And it made me aware of the dilemma these poor racists face, you know, and they are becoming extinct. The second they're aware of their powers, they lose them. It's devastating. We really need to protect our racists, you know. They need to be put in some kind of compound so that they may breed, you know, because I really do have a fear that they're starting to die out, and that would be dreadful. You know, we can't lose any of our species. They're like pandas, you know, but presumably with more issues about black and white coming together. But, you know, I bloody said, you know, I wanted to really pursue this. So what I did was I tried to go out and do as many anti-racist things as possible. Now, the problem with doing something anti-racist is by its very nature, you have to discriminate, which makes you a racist. You know, so it was like, I mean, to paraphrase the Pirates of Penzance, it's never-ending paradox. And it's like trying to make love to a soap bubble, you know, once you start, it's gone. It's dreadful. I set up an organisation. I thought I'll start an equal rights organisation for everybody, get everyone under my roof, get to know everybody, and then I can work out exactly who I don't bloody like. Perfect. We were going to be called the Empatharian Brother and Sisterhood. Now, that was a bit clunky for me, you know, so I decided to shorten it to the Aryan Brotherhood. Now, this attracted a certain class of person, and you know, imagine the confusion on their faces when I was trying to explain that yes, we were equalitarian, but I was trying to become a true dyed-in-the-wool racist like them. Of course, they denied being racist, went out in the car park, had a talk about it. I changed the name again to the Minoritarian Personhood. I know what you're thinking, yes, all bases covered. No. Unfortunately, a load of minotaurs When the Minotaurs showed up, oh thank heavens! We've been waiting for something like this for centuries. Nobody's ever stood up for us. When on earth did we become the symbol for cuckoldry? You know, I mean, God, the Pamplona Bull Run, we showed up, we didn't know which way to turn. Those centaurs, they've got the better end of the bloody deal, haven't they? Getting all the movie roles, Harry Potter, Narnia, they've changed. We can't even get extras on Game of Thrones. The word bullshit! Oh God, this again. Honestly, so tedious. There was a moo. Now, I sent them packing. Of course I did. Now, unfortunately, some of the Aryans were still in the car park and they saw the Minotaurs and told them to go on, get back to ancient Greece where they belong. And the Minotaurs didn't like that. It was like showing a red rag to a half-man, half-bull. Everything kicked off, right? I abandoned the whole thing. I was in a position where I was stuck. I didn't know what the bloody hell to do. You know, I was looking at everything and I was trying to find an angle, trying to find something, and it occurred to me that there wasn't one. But I did find a solution. Now, bear this in mind, perfect solution to end all of these problems, any kind of oppression. What we do, right, and this, what we do is we take all of us white middle class males, take all of us, put us on an island, leave us for a couple of 100 years, maybe throw some upper class females in for breeding purposes. Whoever's left, I'm getting there, whoever's left comes over, colonises the island, takes us all back, enslaves all of us. Now, then there is some kind of wide-scale Battersea Dogs Home type setup, where us white middle-class slaves are adopted. You know, we have to come out, play for 5 minutes and so on, you know. And then, in about 500 years, everything will be kind of on the same page. Now, in that time, no doubt there should be some wonderful racial slurs for us white folk as well that we can enjoy getting offended about, like probably related to food, as most of the good ones are. You know, like, how would you feel about a potatoes dauphinoise marrying your daughter? Excuse me, the seats for the cottage cheese are over there. I mean, it would be wonderful. Now, this is what I've worked out in my head. You know, 500 years, everyone's on the same page, case closed, you know, universal everything. The problem is that white middle-class fellows would make dreadful slaves. Well, I'd have to break some more rocks, old chap. I've got the most horrendous tennis elbow. If you could find some way of praising my rowing technique, I'm sure you'd find me a lot more productive. You know, I mean, the lash is all well and good, but I'm starting to enjoy it now, and I'm sure that's not quite the point. This kind of thing, you know. Can you imagine the art that we'd be able to produce? Can you imagine the wonderful films we could have in 500 or 600 years? You know, 12 years of estate agents. The colour beige. Bridge over the River Q. We want our bloody gardens back! I mean, it would be wonderful. It would be absolutely wonderful, you know. And I'll tell you what I got to, it was through Roger Hargreaves as well. And this really taught me what I had to do. There's a story about Mr. Bump. I don't know if you know it. Mr. Bump is careening around, as is wont, has a particularly concussive episode. Forgets who he is completely. It happens. It should be an assisted living. When he wakes up, he's told by Mr. Muddle that he's actually Mr. Careful. And that leads him to seek jobs that require a great deal of diligence, you know, carrying milk, fetching eggs. Now, due to the, you know, nature of dramatic convention, this all goes horribly wrong. Of course it does. And it carries on until Mr. Bum walks into a tree, remembers who he is, you know, and then promptly falls into a nearby river. Now, Hargreaves' moral of that story is that you can never shake off the label that society gives you. And if you try, you're liable to be knocked out several times. Listen, I know, as a white middle class male, my only option is to get upset on behalf of other people. I've resigned myself to that fate, and I've summed it up in my own Hargreaves-based creation, which I'd like to read to you now. This is Mr. Sanctimonious. Mr. Sanctimonious drank his morning cup of fair trade coffee. Stepped out of his solar-powered house into his little Mr. Electric car that used the bare minimum of Mr. Men fossil fuels. He was on his way to a town meeting. On the way there, he was overtaken by Mr. Grumpy's BMW. He sneered at the pollution spewing from the exhaust pipe. "You swine, Mr. Grumpy! Polluting my clean air! How dare you!" he shouted, shaking his fist in a delighted rage. He then saw little Miss Scatterbrain walking back from the shops with some plastic bags. Could this day get any better? "Are you aware," he screamed, "that these bags take 10,000 years to decompose? Good!" He called the meeting to address some of the things that he disagreed with in Mr. Menland. At the meeting, everyone decided together that the females were no longer to be called Little Miss. Good and Badland were to receive equal council funding to distinguish the ghetto effect, and Mr. Tickle was finally to be brought to justice for all of his disgusting crimes. Everyone was delighted, started to sing and dance as equals. Mr. Sanctimonious was happy as well at first, until a horrible truth slowly dawned on him. What on earth am I going to talk about now? I'm struggling as it is. I'm going to be a completely useless Mr. Man if everyone is happy. Then he saw Mr. Perfect open a door for sunshine. "Ah! Patronising! Sexist!" He saw Mr. Muddle confuse Mr. Uppity for Mr. Lazy. "Disgusting racist!" The rest of the Mr. Men, noticed what was going on. Said, "Listen, Mr. Sanctimonious, we don't need you to worry about us. We can take care of ourselves. We have our own problems. We've dealt with them for hundreds of years. Why don't you relax and become Mr. Carefree?" Well, Mr. Sanctimonious went home very perplexed. The next morning, as he was eating his free ranger, he opened the paper. It was terrible news. Mr. Grumpy had intervened. The Little Miss label must stay. It's confusing, too expensive to change the signs on toilet doors. The funding for Badland was to be redirected towards a new set of luxury flats in Goodland. And Mr. Tickle had his sentence reduced on the basis of his crimes occurring decades before. And his own advancing years. Mr. Sanctimonious smiled and put his paper down. He had some work to do. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Madden the Preview. You have a wonderful lineup. I've been Troy Hawke or Milo McCabe. Thank you very much.